guys. We're going to read chapter 34, 35, and 36 of The Strangers. Finn. Finn woke up in a different place than where he'd fallen asleep again. It was his third morning at Mrs. Morales and Natalie's house, and the past 2 nights, no matter how much he tried to stay awake and help the older kids solve the code, each night Emma had started going on and on about matching up letters, and no, this is how you test for whether that's the right phrase. And the next thing Finn knew, he was waking up in the bedroom. Mrs. Morales had assigned him rather than the office where he'd fallen asleep. Probably Chess had carried him up to bed each night, and Chess was so tall and strong and nice that he probably hadn't even asked Emma or Natalie to help. Finn stretched, his left hand clunking against the wall that he kept forgetting was there because his bed back home sat in the middle of the room, not off in a little alcove like this one. And this bed had a comforter, covered in a weird red flowers, which would be about the last comforter design in the world that Finn would have chosen. But he wasn't going to complain about that to anyone, not when there was so much else going wrong. Like Mom being away and not calling us, and Finn's eyes flooded. He balled up his fists, pressed them against his eyelids until the tears went away. He wasn't used to having to stop his brain from thinking about whatever it wanted to think about. But over the past few days, he learned that he couldn't think about Mom during school or around Mrs. Morales. He couldn't think about the kids in Arizona either, and why had the kids in that family vanished when in Finn's family? Finn scrambled up out of bed to distract himself so he wouldn't have to dig his fists into his own eyes again. Take off your pajamas, put on your clothes, don't think about how Mom always has you pick out a shirt the night before. And Mrs. Morales didn't think about how Chess and Emma and I have been working on solving Mom's code for 2 nights straight. We're still stuck. Finn wasn't sure he buttoned and zipped everything properly, but he left his pajamas in a heap on the floor and raced out of the room like he was scared his own thoughts would chase him. He wanted to find Chess or Emma, but when he passed their rooms, he could see that his brother and sister were still motionless lumps in their beds. Natalie had to get up earlier because middle school started before elementary school. Her room was totally empty, but he could hear someone walking down the stairs. I'll sneak up on her and then jump out and surprise her, Finn told himself. That's a normal thing for me to do. It was weird how he thought about his every actions now, too. Before Mom went away, he'd just done whatever he wanted, mostly without thinking. But now he always had to ask himself, am I acting like myself? The alternative to acting normal was jumping out and screaming, I want my mommy back. Mommy, come and get me now. He couldn't do that, because what if he did and still wouldn't bring Mom back? Finn made himself concentrate on tiptoeing silently down the hall and then down the stairs behind Natalie. None of the stairs in the Morales house gave off a friendly little squeak like the stairs back home, so Natalie didn't hear him. She didn't turn around. I could be a spy, Finn thought. I'm good at this. Mom would be proud. That last part made him gulp hard and not exactly silently, but Natalie didn't seem to notice because she was stepping into the kitchen, where a coffee maker gurgled and Mrs. Morales had a TV turned on low, some announcer talking about stocks or bonds, boring grown-up stuff. Did you sleep well? Finn heard Mrs. Morales say in a fake hearty voice, and Natalie snapped back. Does it matter? Would you let me go back to bed if I didn't? Finn decided he wasn't ready to talk to Natalie and Mrs. Morales yet this morning. He'd keep being a spy. He pressed his back against the wall, separating the kitchen from the dining room, and stood still. On the other side of the wall, Mrs. Morales sighed. I know you still love me, she told Natalie. Someday, when we get past being 13 years old and you're not so angry about the divorce, you're going to thank me for just smiling back at you when you're like this. Natalie made a sound that was halfway between a snort and a humph, and maybe Mrs. Morales was leaning in closer towards her daughter because Finn had a harder time hearing her. I do need your help, Natalie. I still don't know when Kate Greystone's coming back, and she's so vague in all her texts when she even answers my texts. I'm starting to get worried. I told her to take as much time as she needed, but what do you want me to do about it? Natalie snarled. You're not allergic to cats, Mrs. Morales said. You don't have to take Benadryl for days and still be all foggy-headed after being around a cat for 5 minutes. That means that maybe I got something good from Dad's side of the family? Natalie asked. Maybe Mrs. Morales made a face at Natalie. Her voice got a little louder, but other than that, Mrs. Morales kept talking as if Natalie hadn't said anything. That means you can take care of the Greystone's cat for me this afternoon. If we're going to have those kids stay with us for more than just a few days, it looks like we are. I don't think it's a good idea for them to keep going back to their house so often and getting upset all over again. I'll pick you up after school. You can take care of the cat, and then we'll get the kids when their school days end. We'll tell them. I don't know, maybe that their mom wanted to take them too. What's that place they like, Chuck E. Cheese, except for older kids, Dave and Buster's? That should keep their minds off missing their mom for another night. Oh, so you want me to clean up cat poop and lie to a bunch of little kids, Natalie said. Great, Mom. Thanks. It's only a white lie, Mrs. Morales protested. I'm sure Kate does want me to keep her kids happy while... What about the tunnel under the house? Natalie demanded. Aren't you afraid I'll sneak through it again to meet the boys, the ones I don't even know, but... Natalie, I'm trusting you. I'm giving you another chance to act responsibly. Finn could practically hear the frown in Mrs. Morales' voice, because I know you are capable of being trustworthy and responsible. Thanks for the vote of confidence. There was a thud that might have been Natalie slamming the refrigerator door. I do want you to stay out of the tunnel, Mrs. Morales said. Her voice was hesitant now, maybe even scared. You're right, it does worry me. I tried to find out about the design of the house. I looked for building permits filed at the courthouse and everything, but there's nothing. It doesn't make sense. I'm missing something. Finn held his breath. If he'd been Natalie, he would have spilled everything right there. He would have opened his mouth, and the whole story of the automatic text messages and the coded letter, the website butterflies, and the secret lever in the panic room would have tumbled out, whether he wanted it to or not. Even now, even though Mrs. Morales wasn't his mom, he was tempted to round the corner into the kitchen and tell all. But Natalie was just yelling at her mom. Yeah, Mom, you're missing a heart because of how you treated Dad and me. You always treat me like you think I'm going to make the mistake you made and ruin my life like you did. And Natalie came dashing out of the kitchen, smashed directly into Finn. And then Mrs. Morales was there too, right behind Natalie, bending down to take Finn by the shoulders and say in the fakest, heartiest voice of all, Oh, Finn, we didn't hear you get up. Did you just come downstairs? Her eyes begged him to say yes. Natalie's gaze was intense as lasers, as Finn was pretty sure Natalie was trying to say, no matter what you heard, don't tell Mom anything. Lie if you have to. I just got here, Finn mumbled obediently. And then because he thought anybody could have told he was lying, he added a normal Finn line. Is it breakfast yet? Almost, Mrs. Morales said, her voice flooded with fake cheer. Just give me a few more minutes. Hey, Finn, Natalie said too loudly. Why don't you come outside and wait for the bus with me? Then when the bus comes, you can go back inside and tell Mom we'll have your breakfast ready. That's a good idea, Mrs. Morales said, as if she was stunned that Natalie had suggested it. Okay, Finn said. Natalie slid a yogurt container, a granola bar, and a water bottle into her backpack, hoisted it into her shoulder. Finn trailed after her out the front door, and as soon as the door shut behind them, Natalie asked, You heard everything, didn't you? Yep. Natalie reached down and buttoned and rebuttoned 2 buttons of Finn's shirt. Evidently, he had done it wrong. Mom's not really that much of a monster, she said apologetically. It's just she's the one who asked for the divorce, and that just... I don't think your mom's a monster, Finn said. At least you have a mom. Emma or Chess would have immediately hugged him and said, We will, too, soon. We're going to get our mom back. Natalie just kind of froze, and somehow this morning Finn liked that better. I didn't think you took the bus, he said as they started walking down the street. As soon as they started walking down the long, long sidewalk towards the street. I thought your mom drove you. She does, except when we have other kids staying here, Natalie said, which probably makes me selfish that I get mad about that. Sorry, Finn said. Natalie laughed. You could make it up to me by telling Mom you're craving carne asada. She also serves really boring meals when we have kids here, and that bugs me too. Is that food? Finn asked. I bet I would crave it if I knew what it was. I like food. And then Natalie really did hug him, a little bit. I don't mind having you around, she said. Finn didn't know if she meant that about him, or about Emma and Chess too. He decided not to ask. Nothing happened after I fell asleep last night, did it? He asked. Which was... A stupid question because he made Emma and Chess promise to wake him up the instant they solved the code. In the bright sunlight with Natalie, it was possible to ask a little more. Or maybe, did someone find those kids in Arizona? Somehow it seemed like if the kids in Arizona were found, it would be a sign that he and Chess and Emma would get their mom back too. No, Natalie said. She kicked at the mulch that lined the sidewalk. But Finn... What? Finn said. She didn't look at him. You know something. Tell me. Natalie's face twisted and untwisted like she was trying to decide. Okay, she said. I haven't said anything to Emma or Chess because they're all, we've got to solve the code, that's all we can think about, and they're already upset. You know I've been using earbuds, so none of you have to hear what I'm working on. Finn knew what she wasn't saying, so you don't have to hear the voice that sounds like your mother's but isn't. But I have been looking at everything I can about those kids in Arizona and their parents, Natalie went on. And did you see that the mother's name in Arizona is also Kate, just like your mom's? For some reason, it wasn't in the original news coverage. The woman in Arizona looks exactly like your mom and has the same first name? No, Finn said. His mind couldn't take that in. He wasn't going to ask if the other mom had the same birthday too, just like her kids had the same birthdays as Chess, Emma, and Finn. He couldn't. His voice turned accusing. Are you sure you read that right? Or heard it right? He tried to think if he'd seen or heard the Arizona mother's name before, either in the mother's laptop on the first day, while she stood in her kitchen, or on the laptop he used in Mrs. Morales' office 2 nights ago. He'd been too distracted both times. Finn? I'm sure, Natalie said, and I used facial recognition software that Mom has on her computer. Emma helped me get a photo from your mom's phone, and I took a screenshot of the other woman. And that software thinks your mom and the Arizona mom are the same person exactly. Finn absorbed that. Wouldn't facial recognition software think identical twins were the same person? But why would identical twins both be named Kate? He thought of a better question. Which one? Finn asked. His voice cracked. I mean, does the computer think my mom is Kate Gustano, or that the Arizona mom is Kate Greystone? He could barely even say his mother's name. I'm not sure, Natalie said, squinting at him thoughtfully. The software doesn't give any identity by name. It just says that they're the same person. But maybe if I can find a better program like what police use, then... My mom's not a criminal, Finn protested. That's not what I'm saying, Natalie patted his shoulder. I have a theory, but you and your brother and sister aren't going to like it. Try me, Finn said. He puffed out his chest a little, hoping that made him seem older, better prepared for what Natalie was going to say. Well, sometimes grown-ups who say they're just traveling a lot for their jobs actually have 2 different families in 2 different places, Natalie said. They lie. I mean, usually it's the fathers who do this, not moms, and if the birthdays aren't lies too, then either you or those kids in Arizona are adopted. And now that I'm saying this out loud, it sounds kind of crazy, but Natalie, my mom travels for her job maybe once or twice a year, Finn exploded. Just 1 or 2 days at a time. She's almost always with us, except... He couldn't say it, but surely Natalie understood that he meant except now. My mom doesn't have another family. She doesn't lie. She isn't a criminal. And you can stop thinking about any theories that make her a bad person. Okay, Natalie said softly. And then she hugged him again, almost exactly like Chess or Emma would. As soon as she let go, Finn turned around to face away from the street. If the bus came now, he wouldn't want anyone on it to see how close he was to tears. But now he was facing the house. Something moved in the huge picture window in the front. It was Mrs. Morales stepping off to the side behind the drapes. She'd been watching them. And it was funny. When Mom watched out their window while Finn and Emma and Chess were waiting for their bus, it always made him feel safe and secure, loved and protected. Having Mrs. Morales watch him, and Natalie now, and dart behind the drapes so he didn't see her, just scared him more. What was Mrs. Morales so afraid of? What if something that even a grown-up couldn't protect him from? 35. Emma. 10,000 failures, Emma muttered. Huh? Chess said, swiveling in his chair beside her. They were back in Mrs. Morales' office for the 3rd night in a row of trying to solve Mom's code with her own words. You think you've already tried that many possibilities? No, I'm trying to remember a Thomas Edison quote. Emma tapped her pencil against her jaw. Something about how he didn't fail 10,000 times, he just found 10,000 ways that didn't work. Or 10,000 steps to success, or something like that. "Oh," Chess said. He didn't look any more encouraged than Emma felt. Back before, that was how Emma had started thinking about everything in her life up to the last moment she'd seen her mother. Emma had loved reading and hearing and thinking about inventors, scientists, mathematicians, who'd overcome all sorts of obstacles on their way to some brilliant new breakthrough. The obstacles made their stories even more exciting. She'd never known how exhausting all that failure was, how discouraging. And really, Edison had tried so hard just because he wanted to beat other inventors and be more famous. It wasn't his mother's life on the line. "I don't know that my mother's life is on the line either," Emma reminded herself. Even exhausted and discouraged and scared, she wasn't going to start treating something like a fact if she wasn't sure. But this felt like a life and death issue. Mom loves us much. She wouldn't go off and leave us like this if we weren't incredibly, terribly important, Emma told herself. If this wasn't life and death, it really was close. That was why Emma had been working on her mother's code as close to around the clock as she could. She carried notebooks full of notations to school with her, worked on the code every time the teacher looked away. She worked through recess and lunch. "New project, Emma?" her math teacher, Mrs. Gunderson, had asked fondly as Emma walked to the gym class, scratching off letters and symbols in the notebook. "Is this going to be one of the wins the Nobel Prize?" Emma liked Mrs. Gunderson. She liked anyone who liked math, but it was amazing how close Emma had come to breaking down in tears at that moment. She wanted to shout back at Mrs. G, "This isn't some cutesy little kid pretending to be a mathematician project. This isn't kind of the thing I'm used to. This is real." Would Mrs. G have used that tone with Katherine Johnson at NASA? When Katherine Johnson was calculating how to get John Glenn up into space and back down again without crashing? Would Mrs. G have smiled so patronizingly at the code breaking during the World War II, who were trying to figure out how to stop Nazi subs from sinking Allied ships? Even way back in the 1940s, those code breakers had early versions of computers to help them. Emma was pretty sure there was a way to set up a code computer program to test various keys to Mom's code, but it seemed like it would take too long to figure that out. Or to completely make sure it was private and secure. Mom always made a big deal about that. "Anytime you put something online, you have to ask yourself if you want the whole world to see it," Emma said, aloud quoting Mom. "That's another saying we should test." "Are you sure it isn't whenever you put something online?" Chess asked. And that was the problem with Mom's sayings. They weren't exact. Sometimes Mom had said anytime, sometimes she'd said whenever. That meant Emma needed to try both versions, writing out the complete phrase and then listing A, B, C, D, etc. above each letter. What if the key to the code was actually every time you put something online? Maybe Emma was wrong about everything. Maybe Chess was too, and they weren't even trying the right approach. Emma's pencil snapped against her paper, sending the tip spinning into the air. "Maybe you should take a break," Natalie said from across the room, where she had a twin earbud cord snaking out of her hair down to the laptop. She also had Finn curled up beside her with his head drooping against her arm. He'd fallen asleep an hour ago. "No," Emma said stubbornly, "we have to solve this." "Well then, at least take some time to look at the books I brought you from Mom's office," Natalie tried again. "Maybe that will help." "No thanks," Chess said. Emma was glad that he spoke for both of them. She would have left off the thanks. It bugged Emma that Natalie had been at the Greystones' house without Chess, Emma, and Finn. Mrs. Morales had Natalie take care of Rocket because Mrs. Morales said that they gave him more time to have fun with their special Friday night treat, a trip to Dave & Buster's. Emma hadn't had fun at Dave & Buster's. Mrs. Morales insisted she leave her notebooks in the car, so Emma had been reduced to writing potential keys on napkins and award tickets and stuffing them in her pocket. Surprisingly, this also proved that she was better at skee-ball when she didn't look while throwing the ball than when she did. But all afternoon, anytime Mrs. Morales was out of earshot, Natalie made a big deal about how she smuggled out the 2 books from the boring room bookshelves, the dictionary, the old computer manual. It was like Natalie thought she had the one who provided a way to solve Mom's code. "I thought they might be important," Natalie said. "I looked up codes online. There's one type where you can use a dictionary or some other book." "Right. If the person who made the code gives you a page number and another word that tells you how far down on the page the keyword is," Emma retorted, almost as if they were arguing. "Mom didn't leave us any numbers." Now Emma did at least reach across the desk and absent-mindedly rifle her finger across the pages of the dictionary, just because it was Mom's. Then she moved her hand to trace the crooked heart picture on the back of Mom's phone. What you should have brought us was that heart picture from inside Mom's desk, Emma told Natalie. That might have been a clue. You said it was just a copy of the picture on Mom's phone, Chess reminded her. Do you think the original picture is a clue? Finn drew it on Mom's phone case 3 years ago. How could it be a clue? I don't know, Emma snapped back at him. Doesn't it feel like we don't know anything? Chess stared back at Emma. His eyes looked watery, as if he might go on the verge of crying. Maybe it was just Emma was seeing through his watery eyes. We're all tired, Natalie said, in a surprising, gentle tone. I don't think we're going to figure out anything else tonight. Tomorrow's Saturday. Why don't we just all go to bed and then tomorrow morning? No, Emma and Chess said together, both of them shouting at Natalie. Natalie jerked her head back at the force of their words. That must have yanked her earbud cords out of the laptop because suddenly Mom's voice surrounded them. I'm sure they're taking care of each other. Ever since they were born, I've told my kids you'll always have each other. I'm an only child myself, so... Natalie scrambled to plug the metal tip of her earbud cord back to its port, and the mom voice went silent. Sorry, she cried. I'm so sorry. There's a new interview with the Greystone parents out tonight. I was listening to that, and I guess this destroys our theory about your mother and Mrs. Greystone being twins, right? I mean, if she was telling the truth about being an only child, then... Play it again, Emma said. Emma, we don't have to torture ourselves, Chess said. We can let Natalie play it again, Emma insisted. Natalie fumbled with the laptop. I'm not sure I'm rewinding to the right place, but Mom's voice sounded again. Since they were born, I've told my kids you'll always have each other. Emma flipped over Mom's phone. Fingers flying, punched in the code and opened the texting app. Mom told the key code from the very beginning, Emma cried. We've had it all along. What are you talking about? Natalie asked. Emma pointed at a clump of words on the screen of Mom's phone. Natalie was too far away to see, but Chess leaned in close and then away. Emma, it hurts to look at that text message. Mom's saying she'll never see us again ever, he began, choking on his own words. Do you really think... Emma tapped the sentence that began, tell them, and Chess went silent. Meanwhile, Emma was counting. 24, 25, 26. It's perfect. With the apostrophe and the period, you'll always have each other. Has exactly 26 characters, just like the alphabet, and that is something Mom says all the time. If she'd only wanted to remind us of that, she would have said, tell them they'll always have each other. So this has to be it. It has to. Try it, Chess said. Dimly, Emma was aware that Natalie eased Finn's head over onto the arm of the couch and left him behind to come over and watch Emma writing down letters. Dimly, Emma heard Natalie ask Chess as he stood up and leaned in to watch, too. Do you think this will explain the Greystone kidnappings, too, or just your mother going away? Dimly, Emma heard Chess mutter, let's see if it works at all, first. It will, Emma told herself. This time, I know it. You'll always have each other. Wasn't a perfect code key because some letters duplicated. There were 4 A's, 3 L's, and 3 E's, so that meant anytime Emma encountered one of those in the coded message, she had to write down a variety of choices, go back and figure out which was correct for the context. She decided to focus on just one sentence at a time. Yes, she screamed. It makes sense. It's real words. Let us see, Natalie demanded. Emma kind of wanted to show only Chess first, but she was too excited to care. She slid her arm back, revealing the deciphered words in a sea of cross-outs and false starts. Only then did the meaning of the sentence before her start to sink in. How much do you know about alternate worlds? 36. Chess. Alternate worlds? Chess repeated numbly. Natalie was typing on her phone. I got the definition, she said. They're parallel universes, places that could be almost completely identical to our world or very, very different. There's something about how they go along with theories of quantum mechanics, blah, 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 an infinite variety of worlds existing alongside ours, but we know what alternate worlds are, Emma exploded. She was breathing hard, her eyes wild, her cheeks flushed, her hair held back only by a pencil she stuck behind her ear 2 hours ago and clearly forgotten about. She looked feverish or maybe even delirious. For himself, Chess only felt dizzy and confused. He knew what the word alternate meant. He knew what worlds were, and together the two words were harder to grasp. Maybe if we translate more of the code, he began. Good idea, Natalie said. Emma opened her mouth, shut it, picked up her pencil again. She held one finger beside the computer screen, itching the fingernail forward to touch every letter. So that becomes a W, then an E, and then she muttered. Chess knew he should offer to help his sister. Maybe he should suggest that they take turns alternating words. Oh, alternating. Alternate. Chess felt dizzy again. His thoughts weren't making sense. He kept his mouth shut. Emma dropped her pencil, held up the paper she'd been writing on, and Mom's next sentence is, "We all came from an alternate world, and I had to go back," she announced. Could that be right? She sounded like she doubted her own ability to read. Two parallel universes might start with only one difference separating them. Natalie read from her phone. Sometimes scientists theorize that a new universe might split off every time anyone makes a decision, creating a separate world for each possible choice. Then the differences multiply, or they might be erased. So if you walk into an ice cream shop, there might be one universe created where you pick chocolate ice cream, one where you choose vanilla, and one where you choose strawberry. Nobody ever chooses vanilla or strawberry, Emma protested, as if that actually mattered. Maybe not in the universe, Chess wanted to joke. He was seized by an awful desire to laugh. He wanted Emma to shout out, "Ha ha, this was just a joke. Did you think I was serious? Mom's coded messages actually say." He couldn't think what he wanted Mom's coded messages to say. He didn't even know what was possible. Were alternate worlds possible? Why are we talking about ice cream? Chess asked. Mom did not leave us because of ice cream. We don't know that, Emma said, waving her hands helplessly at Chess. Any little decision could change anything. She blinked, dazed, as if struggling to go back to being her usual logical self, like ice cream. This isn't about Mom, but here's how it could be a big deal. Say pick vanilla instead of chocolate. And so the scooper guy has to go back to the walk-in freezer that much sooner to get a new tub of vanilla. And that's where he is when a robber comes in with a gun. So he isn't shot and killed. Or maybe it's the other way around. Maybe he doesn't go back for the next tub of chocolate ice cream as quickly, so he's still at the counter when a robber comes in. That's why he dies, just because of ice cream. So now there are two different worlds created from one little decision. One where the scooper guy's alive and one where he's dead. And I don't know, maybe he was supposed to become president someday, but because he's dead in the world, that means... Can we stop using examples where people die? Chess asked quietly. Natalie looked up from her phone. Her gaze felt too sharp, too focused. We already know the difference between this world and the other one, she says, as if that was supposed to make everything better. But then she bit her lip. Part of it, anyway. Chess could only stare at her. Even Emma stopped raving about ice cream. It's your mom, Natalie said. Your mom and that woman in Arizona. Emma clenched the arms of her chair so tightly that it seemed like she might leave dense. Explain, she whispered. I don't know if this is what split the worlds, or just a consequence, Natalie said. But what if your mom and that Arizona mom are different versions of the same person? Chess recoiled. Mom was not a version of anyone. She was fully herself, totally unique. She was Mom. Chess waited for Emma to start shouting about that. He wanted her to start shouting at Natalie, but Emma just gulped and held on the chair even tighter. Now the color seemed to have drained from her face. Your mom and that Arizona mom look almost exactly alike, Natalie asked. They sound alike, they use some of the same expressions, you'll always have each other, and they're both named Kate. Chess hadn't known that part, but at this point he didn't even care. So maybe, before the world split, your mom and this other woman were totally, 100% the same person, Natalie said, but the worlds did split somehow. I'm a little fuzzy on how that could have happened, and maybe it's like, I don't know, copying a picture on your phone and editing the two versions differently. Maybe the world split before Mom or that other woman were even born, Emma interrupted. Her breathing was more ragged than ever. So they were always separate. Did you ever think of that? Our mom is just not a copy. Jess wanted to cheer Emma on, but he felt too paralyzed to speak. Okay, Natalie said, her hands out as if she were backing up from a dangerous animal. You're right. We don't know when the world split. Maybe that's in the rest of the letter. But we do know there are two worlds, two Kates. One world's Kate marries a man named Arthur Gustana in Arizona. The other marries a man named... What was your dad's name? Neither Emma nor Chess told her it was Andrew. Natalie kept talking anyway. Each woman still ends up having kids named Rochester, Emma, Finn on the exact dates, she added. So is that the only really big difference between the two worlds? Who your mom married? And then did that lead to all the other differences? What state they lived in and the fact that those other kids got kidnapped and we didn't, Chess thought, that's different too. He couldn't quite follow what Natalie was saying, but he couldn't forget about the kidnappings. What if that was why Mom wanted them to be in this world instead of wherever they started out? How could she have known ahead of time that the kidnappings were coming? Chess sat down. He was afraid he might fall over instead. It isn't possible to travel between two alternate worlds, Emma shouted. All of this is just hypothetical. Alternate worlds are just hypothetical. Maybe they figured it out in the other world, Natalie said. Maybe you're 3 and your mother were the first to make this kind of trip. Emma pressed her hands over her ears like she was trying to shut out Natalie's words. This is not what I expected, she muttered. I can't. Emma's brain must have been spinning as badly as Chess's. His thoughts were completely out of control. You might have to translate the rest, Natalie said. She sounded calm, or at least calmer. Natalie mostly just seemed excited to have finally solved the mystery. It wasn't her mom who was missing in a completely different world, so of course, Natalie could act like this was just a matter of deciphering code. Natalie seemed to notice that neither Emma nor Chess were reaching for a pencil. I'll do it, she said. Chess and Emma both watched dazedly as Natalie tilted the computer screen so she could see the coded message better. A's, E's, and L's are tricky because they could be lots of different letters, Emma explained weakly, pointing to her own scribblings. Got it, Natalie said. She snatched up the pencil. Chess blinked and felt amazed that he was capable of that much movement. We said we'd wake up Finn as soon as we solved the code, Chess told Emma, as soon as we had the answer. Do we really have an answer yet? Emma asked. Do you understand this well enough to explain it to Finn? No, Chess thought. He made no move towards his little brother. He just sat there watching Natalie scrawl letters onto paper, and Emma unfroze a little, starting to point out to Natalie, if that H translates to a T, that makes the word this, and that word's got to be old. Chess couldn't have begun to translate any code right now. His brain still felt like an echo chamber, alternate worlds. Mom says we're from alternate worlds, so Emma, Finn, and Mom and I don't belong here at all. It was true. He'd always felt different from the other kids at school. He'd always thought that was because he was the only kid he knew whose father was dead. The only kid he knew who had to comfort his crying mother when he was only 4 and sad himself. The only kid he knew he had to become a father figure for his little brother and sister when he was barely older than them himself. Chess glanced at Finn, draped across Mrs. Morales' office couch and still soundly asleep. One arm dangled off the edge of the couch, his mouth was open. That made it look like he was both reaching for and calling out to Chess. I think we still have to wake Finn, Chess said, finally answering Emma's question out loud. He got up, stumbled towards the couch. He slid his arm under Finn's neck and knees and lifted. Finny, he said softly, cradling his brother against his chest. Finn, we've got good news. He didn't actually know yet if it was good or not. It didn't feel that way. Finn murmured, which could have been the start of saying Mom or just protesting at being disturbed. Chess carried Finn back to where Emma and Natalie were working. Finn snuggled his face against Chess's neck as if he thought this was just a new place to sleep. His legs dangled awkwardly. Chess was tall for his age and Finn was small for his, but it still wasn't comfortable for a 12-year-old to carry an 8-year-old. Finn, Chess said, you need to wake up and... What? Did we mess up somewhere? Natalie cried, stabbing her pencil against the paper. None of this is making any sense now. That would be an A, that would be a B. Oh no, Emma clutched her head, smashing her hair down. You're right, Natalie. It looks like my mom changed the code for the next section. We can't read the rest, not without figuring out another key. But you got some of it, Chess asked hopefully. This, Natalie said, handing him a paper full of scratch-outs, crooked letters. Natalie's calligraphy-like printing mixed together with Emma's mad scientist scrawl. Even the pretty lettering got messier and messier the farther he looked down the page. Chess shifted the weight of Finn's drowsy body to the side and hesitantly began. He got stuck on the next word because it had too many scratch outs and erasures. Emma snatched the paper from his hand. Here, I'll read it, she said, her voice harsh. Chess didn't think she was really mad at him, though. Mom wrote, I don't know how old you are reading this. I see you as 8, 10, and 12, but maybe I made this code too hard and you're older now. Maybe even much older, so it's hard to know how to explain. The world the 4 of us came from was a dangerous place. Your father and I were part of a group trying to make it better by exposing the lies of the people in power. But powerful people like to stay in power. The truly evil ones will do anything to keep control. Our leaders made it illegal to criticize them, or even to reveal the truth about what they're doing. We thought we could do our work in secret. Eventually the truth would win. But then they killed your father and... Wait, what? Killed? Chess interrupted. His legs collapsed beneath him. Still clutching Finn, he almost missed the chair. Killed? Dad's car wreck wasn't an accident? Mom never told me. His ears rang. His vision seemed to go in and out. Chess, you were, 4 when it happened? Natalie asked gently. Chess tightened his arms around Finn, who was still soundly asleep. He resisted the impulse to cover Finn's ears so he wouldn't hear, and Finn was 8. But now, he managed to say, now I'm 12, and Mom is telling you now, Emma said. Her gaze was steady. So much like Mom's. Weakly, Chess lifted his hand, motioning for Emma to continue. She cleared her throat and read on in a husky voice. Killed your father. I knew I had to leave to save the 3 of you, but I couldn't just abandon everyone else I cared about. Everything I knew, everything I could help with, so I made a bargain. A dangerous one. I kept my work from here, but I thought the 3 of you would be safe. I didn't think anyone could follow me to this world, but some of our enemies did. Just now. I've always known I should never attempt to find my doppelganger here in this world. I tried very hard to make sure that our paths never crossed. That was part of the reason I worked so hard to keep my own name and face and identity out of any public records. If you looked up the records for our house, it wouldn't even say that I'm the one who owns it. Chess looked over at Natalie, whose face was flushed. Evidently, she'd known that already. What else had she tried to look up about Mom, only to find nothing? Emma was still reading Mom's words. I tried to keep you guys' identity private, too. That's why I always signed the form saying your names or pictures couldn't be used in the school website. That was why I was also careful about why I let you do anything online. I tried to keep all of us invisible as possible, just in case. It never occurred to me that my secrecy would endanger my doppelganger. But I covered my tracks too well, so when the bad people came, they found her and her family, not me. They thought she was me. After all, our fingerprints matched, other details matched, and I'm sure they thought the details that didn't fit were just part of my attempts to hide. Those kids in Arizona were kidnapped because of me, because the bad people thought those kids were the 3 of you. The bad people must have thought that was the only way to lure me back. I know it's a trap, but I can't leave those innocent kids in danger because of me. I can't leave those other parents grieving. I think I know of a way to rescue those kids without endangering myself, and I have to try. I've always kept a supply of food and money, all in small bills that wouldn't be traced, to share with people suffering back in the other world. Emma glanced up. That's what we saw in the panic room, Natalie finished for her. Go on, Chess urged, because he couldn't care about canned food and dollar bills when he felt such dread rising inside of him. The word killed still echoed in his ears. And if that's what they did to Dad, then Mom... Emma peered back to the paper in her hand, and Chess noticed that her hand was shaking. Let's see. Suffering. Oh yes. Cash is important in the world because so much is done in secret. I thought if I had a lot more money, I could hire some of the people I'd helped to turn around and help me rescue the Greystone kids. I had to cash out your college savings. That's what Finn's friend saw her carrying out of that bank, Natalie exclaimed. Hear that, Finn? Your mom didn't rob a bank. Finn barely grunted in his sleep. Emma glared at Natalie. We already knew that, Emma practically snarled. We never thought she was a robber. Chess didn't care about banks or money either. "That's not the end, is it?" he asked. He had to steady himself by holding on to Mrs. Morales' desk. She goes on to say, "I'm really sorry about the college accounts. I'll figure out how to build them up again when I get back." Emma's eyes flickered. She was reading ahead. "But Chess, she says she's coming back," Chess blurted. To his own ears, he sounded as young as Finn. He fought to regain control. That's all that matters. "Oh, Chess," Emma said. Her face had gone mournful and still like stone. Chess waited, unable to speak. But finally, Emma lowered her head and read in a choked voice. "If I've been gone long enough for you to get this letter and decode and read this, that means I was wrong. I failed completely. I'm so sorry. You must never try to follow me because..." Emma gulped and finished in a whisper. "Because it's too late." Whew, this book is good. All right, more tomorrow.